Okay, welcome to everyone who's on the call. We'll get going properly in just another 2 minutes here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to MJBiz's Marketing Strategies for Your Cannabis Business webinar. My name is Pam Moore, and I'm the Chief Content Officer for MJBiz. That means that the editorial team reports into me, and I also oversee all of our media products, which means that I spend all day long and have for the past 20 years spent all of my time focused on making sure that our B2B clients get access to the audience and create solid marketing plans for their businesses. So I'm here to share insights from all that experience.
And I am Rachel Grundner. I'm the Director of Sales here at MJBiz. I work alongside the sales consultants whose primary job is to meet with clients, identify their needs, what their intended marketing strategy is, and offer guidance as needed within the cannabis industry, and put together a comprehensive plan that they can roll out throughout the year to expand their business across the cannabis industry.
Great, so we're happy to share with you our real-world expertise of what people are doing these days in cannabis marketing. And to start things off, of course, the terrain has changed. So why are we doing this webinar now? Because the importance of marketing is stronger than ever. Obviously, the game has changed in cannabis. Everyone that we're talking to is facing a challenging market. I'm being told that the 2023 is going to be the year for branding, because gone are the days when you can pop up any cannabis kind of related business and just expect to make money. It's all about getting your messaging out. Interestingly, at the same time and in the same year, everybody's strapped for cash. So while you have to do more marketing, you have to do it more economically than ever. And so what we're going to basically cover today is what we're seeing at the ground level among all of our clients, key takeaways of what they're doing good, what's going bad, how to make it work, and exactly that kind of setup. I do have a couple of housekeeping notes for you. We're going to cover 3 main sections in our presentation. The first part is going to look at some basics. What has shifted in people's basic marketing approaches, and what of those ideas can you steal? The second section is going to be sample campaigns. So as you're thinking about your marketing strategy for the year, given the current conditions and what we talk about in the first section, what are some ideas for how you could create a campaign to achieve your marketing goals? We'll give you real-world examples from real-world clients and how they're creating marketing campaigns. And then number 3, we'll cover some of the newer ways to do marketing, outreach, and lead generation through MJBiz, but also through some of our competitors, just to keep you abreast of some of the things that we're seeing work for our clients in terms of products. As we talk through all of this, our focus as a business-to-business company, our primary interest is in that B2B or business-to-business space. So we're going to put our focus on business-to-business marketing. There is some overlap, of course, with a business-to-consumer marketing approach, but just to try to bracket some of what we're talking about, we're going to focus on that B2B space. I would also encourage you to make sure you're watching the chat or comment area. As we go through the slides, we're going to be sharing some links to other sites and other resources that might be useful. So keep that chat function open. We also will do a question and answer session at the end. So the way to ask your questions is to put your questions into that chat area. So you can put those in at any time, but we'll work on answering them at the end of the session. Final housekeeping note, everybody who's registered for this event will get a copy of the slides at the end. So if your note-taking skills are challenged, don't worry, you'll get a copy of the slides at the end. Okay, so let's start with section 1 then, which is about some basics in marketing. Always in marketing, it's good to begin at the beginning. And so this slide summarizes some of the things that you should be considering as you look at your marketing plan for the year. Everything from setting goals to thinking about how your market has changed, selecting the right vehicles, defining a budget, and knowing how you're going to follow ROI. So these are all some of the things that we'll cover throughout the rest of this presentation. But we didn't want to make this a presentation that's, marketing 101. We assume most of you know something about marketing already, so you don't need our help in doing sort of 101 level stuff. What I do want to do is focus on what we're seeing in the market now and some of the things that we've seen shift. The first one of those goes back, if you look at this list, analyze your market, who will drive your growth now. One of the interesting things we're seeing is that many of our clients' growth strategy has changed even in just the last quarter. As we talk to people, a lot of our clients, right, are in the ancillary space, so they're selling shovels to the gold miners is how I talk about it. So if you're a lighting company or a point of sale vendor, your growth strategy traditionally has been getting into every newly licensed dispensary, or if you're selling lights, every newly licensed cultivation site to expand your presence. What we're seeing in the market now, though, is a reduction of those rooftops or storefronts. There's consolidation happening in the industry, or at least a slowdown in the industry in terms of how many of those brand new businesses you can get into. So we're definitely seeing people look at their marketing and their growth potential less as new buildings, brand new clients, and increasingly putting a lot of weight as well, not entirely to replace it, but as well on getting more revenue from existing clients. So something to keep in mind as you're formulating your marketing strategy. An example of how that would change your tactic is instead of trying to reach everyone who's even at all curious about starting a cannabis business, like these wide shooting campaigns, it seems more important to me than ever to be hyper targeted in your approach, whether that's by geography or by sector. For example, you might want to target your marketing only on the new states with new emerging markets is one way to do that growth. I'm also talking to some folks who are focusing a lot of their efforts on account-based marketing or an ABM strategy, account-based marketing. So what this means is you're primarily focused on releasing products to a customer base that is already familiar with you or is already using your products. So not only how do you get brand new clients, but how do you get more cash from the clients you already have? So that's one solid example of how people's growth strategy and therefore marketing has changed for 2023. As I noted at the top, the other big thing is that as money gets constricted, the first thing to go is marketing budgets. Believe me, we feel your pain. So it's more important than ever that your marketing be as simple as you can possibly make it. So and as cheap as you can make it while still getting the returns that you need. So what I have on this slide here is an actual example of something that MJBiz is working on right now. This little screenshot comes from our automated email marketing system. We use Eloqua. Other examples are HubSpot. There's a lot of them out there. But what this shows is how we set up an automated email campaign. This campaign happens to be for a free product we have. It's a Cannabis 101 course. So great example of content marketing as a way to get audience share, because like you, we need to get new audience all the time so that we can get them to come to MJBizCon by the end of the year, right? So I'm chasing names just like you are. This has been a total winner. And the beauty of it is once it's set up, it kind of runs itself. So give me a minute and I'll explain exactly what we're doing. We produced a series of 6 emails. Each email covers a basic part of the cannabis industry. So it works as like a Cannabis 101 class. And each week, anybody who signs up for the series of emails gets one of those emails that tells them about some kind of background about the industry. Through marketing automation software, like you see here, we can set up that campaign to happen anytime. So each person who signs up as a member to this email send, they get their first welcome message, we wait a week, and then they get their first email message, then we wait a week, then they get the second email message, then we wait a week, and so on and so forth. But nobody on my team is now touching this. Once it's set up, it just kind of runs and runs and runs, and every week we're getting new names of people who have enough interest to give us their name and email address and download this asset. So automation is fantastic right now. Investment on the front end, but efficiency in a huge way after that. We're also seeing increased focus on some less expensive products. A couple examples that we have, but everybody has these, we run a product that is a pay-as-you-go product. So it's essentially a subscription. So each month there's a low cost, under $500, and you pay only $500 a month, but you continue for as many months in a row as you want. And what you're buying is run-of-site advertising on MJBiz Daily. So you have kind of a steady drip of exposure to our audiences without needing to constantly renegotiate a contract, figure out what you're doing. It's just like a steady drip for a low cost each month. And a third thing that we're seeing growth in is we do have a free industry directory. So that's another example where people are just coming in, trying to get what they can, while being probably short-staffed, underfunded, but still needing to have high growth. I'm going to pass the bar to Rachel now to talk about some return on investment myths.
Yeah, so I think in this present world, we know the reality of, okay, this is 2023 is going to be a tough year. We keep hearing this through every sort of media we're consuming, right? So that being said, I thought that it would be important to just bust some myths right out the gate. What I'm going to share here are the most common things that my team hears when talking about marketing and advertising within the cannabis industry. And there's some key takeaways that I want to be sure to bring forth, because everyone has a different mindset. Everyone has different backgrounds when it comes to marketing. Some people are super green who are entering into the industry because they're driven by the passion for the industry. Some are not so green because they are very, very familiar either with how advertising works within the industry or in general, and they're just expanding into this space. So wanted to kind of create an even playing field for everybody here. The most common thing, as like in Q4, when we're having discussions to plan for the next year with our clients and they're building out their proposals to pitch to their C-suites on, what their marketing plan is going to look like for the next year in budgets. I know that there's definitely folks that are like, I want to get a deal. What sort of deal can I get? The reality is, in this day and age, shopping for advertising is not going to be the same as shopping for, I don't know, something that you may be looking at a market, essentially. What our situation is here is you do get what you pay for. So you have to think about what's the reach that you're looking for, what's the return on investment that you need, and then determine what you can invest into that. So when it comes to how can I get a deal, sure, there may be different things that different publications or media outlets are willing to incorporate, like value ads, running of specials, things along those lines, maybe some loyalty opportunities there. But at the end of the day, you are going to get what you pay for. Advertising is priced based on the value. That's it. So just keep that in mind. Do your research when looking at where you want to spend your advertising dollars. Make sure that you're getting all the data you need to get to ensure the value is there for what it is that you're going to spend. The second myth is that it's smarter to run one advertisement and see how it performs before determining your next step or what your full strategy is going to be. This is a very common mistake that folks who are more green to marketing or advertising will make. because they look at it as, well, I just want to give it a trial run, see how it turns out. If it's not good, I'm not going to continue. If it turns out to be fantastic, then I'll continue. And those situations more often than not, unless you have something killer that the world can't live without, you're going to set yourself up to fail. When it comes to success and results from advertising and marketing, you have to think of it as a long-term investment. People don't know you, they don't know your product, they don't know your service if you're not marketing yourself, if you're not making your presence known. It's very similar in the world of social media. If you're trying to create a brand or expand a brand, nobody knows you exist until you make sure they know you exist. So consistency is key. People do need to see your branding. They need to see what it is that you offer all through advertising before they can understand who you are and what you do. And before you become second nature, like your favorite shoe brand or your favorite television series and how those are marketed over and over to you before it clicks and you're like, I do need that. So keep that in mind. Myth 3, I should only advertise when promoting one specific thing. I'm not going to say that's an entire myth. Yes, if you have something you want to build exposure around specifically, you should market that, absolutely. But the thing that you need to think about is how are you setting yourself up to prepare to push out whatever that new product or service is. Again, it kind of goes back to myth 1. It doesn't hold a whole lot of value or credibility if people don't know who you are. You have to establish that first and foremost. So keep that in mind. You should always think of advertising and marketing as a 365 approach. So that way you can build up exposure. When you push something out, the credibility is already there, but then you have that ability to give, to drive opportunities for follow-up and create ongoing opportunities for revenue generation. Next.
Yeah, that last point in particular really ties with the idea that this is the year of the brand.
Yeah.
Really, there's so much that this is why the market is tanked in cannabis in part is because of how many brands, like it's oversaturated market.
Yeah.
So the only way to stand out, apart from having a great product, is to build that brand so that people understand you have a great product.
Yeah. And there's no reason to necessarily reinvent the wheel too. I personally am of the mindset of take what you know. What are you experiencing in your personal life? What is driving you to click on something? And take that knowledge and apply it and see what happens. So there is the truth of human psychology there to take into account. And the beautiful thing about that is that you can apply it, your personal experience, to that. So do so, please. The fourth myth is biggest reach gets the best results. So this ties into what Pam said beautifully earlier. That's not the case, especially as we're progressing forward. You want to become more niche in your approach. So identify who is your target audience, and when you're going to spend your dollars, spend them on the avenues that are going to get you directly in front of your target audience. That's just going to increase your ROI. It ends up being more cost effective to do that. And then you're not wasting time casting a wide net and having to weed out what doesn't resonate, essentially. The final myth is you can't measure the marketing impact of print, AKA magazines, in our world here at MJBiz. That's actually untrue. If you do your research as you're talking to different publications, you'll find that different organizations will partner with research firms to be able to track data when it comes to print. For example, at MJBiz, we partner with Signet Study Research or Signet Research. Highly recommend looking into them. So as you are determining how do I diversify my approach, because as we know, even in the world of investments, diversification is key. Same goes with media. So don't hesitate away from print. Don't commit to the idea that print's dead. Because the reality is that diversity is in all levels of humanity, especially when it comes to readership. I am sure if I could see a raise of hands here and I asked how many of you prefer to pick up something physical and turn the pages, I bet you anything 50% of you would raise your hand. So you have to keep that same exact thought in mind when you're determining your marketing strategy. Pam, I'll let you touch on this one.
Sure. So Rachel was just saying that many publishers partner with a third party to get advertisers' data on the power of print. This is an example of the kind of report that we give advertisers in our magazine. And again, we're trying not to make this just about MJBiz. You can talk to other publishers as well, but it's worth asking about, like, how do I get actual data from print? And hopefully they have an answer. So this is what Rachel called our Signet study. That's the third party we contract with to do this. So what they do is, if you advertise in our magazine, and we do it twice a year, so that people can improve their advertising over the course of the year, this company, Signet, actually reaches out to our readers, the people on our mailing list, and asks them questions about them and their demographics, how much they read the magazine, as well as how much they recognize the advertiser and respect the advertising. So on this side, people are responding to how much they respect the magazine, how much they read the magazine. On this page, this is what I grade out for privacy reasons. This is a list of some of our advertisers who are in print in our magazine, and what page they appeared on, what their ad study score is compared to other people in the category. Are they above or below the average in terms of how they're performing with their print ad? And then what % of the readers recall seeing the ad, recall actually reading the ad, and whether or not they've actually talked to or seen a salesperson from that same company. So you get a lot of information about how you can increase your market share through print.
Perfect. And I saw a question come through from Dr. Tony Ferrari. So I do want to address that. Tony, totally understand, especially in your situation, what you're getting there. The ultimate key takeaway I'm hoping folks get from that myth, if you will, is research is key. Understanding what are the results, what are the patterns of results from the publications or the media that you're choosing to invest in. And you can ask those very direct questions from whoever it is that you're looking at, as you should. And then you should compare them against one another too, to ultimately determine what is the reality for your specific advertising push and what's going to be the best to fit your specific needs. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, it's actually a great lead in to the topic on this slide, which is when we're talking to clients and they say they get poor ROI, great ROI, they have questions about ROI. Not everybody measures that the same way, so it seemed worth addressing some ideas. And these lists really come from HubSpot, so we'll put the link to where this came from in the chat so you can read on your own. But there's a couple, how I tend to think of it, which just in case it's helpful to you, is really to look at all aspects of the full funnel. So to me, what I would measure as a marketer myself is, first I look at total reach, like how many people saw my message or did I get my message in front of? And I like to look at that both by channel, by which I mean, how many people did I reach on social, in paid social, print, email, like whatever my channel is, which of those channels has been most effective for my reach? And overall, the total reach, as Rachel says, increases with that diversification approach. Like the more channels you're on, the more total reach you have. I also, because we too buy media exposure, I look per media brand. So if you're in our audience's today's seat, you might compare, like, what reach are you getting through MJBiz Daily? What reach are you getting through Cannabis Business Times? What reach are you getting through whatever else you're doing? So that, again, you can compare one to the other. So you start at the top of the funnel, total reach, but then you narrow it down. Reaching people is great, and the brand awareness, to Rachel's earlier point, is like, has a return on investment itself. That said, it's as important to look at how many of those people actually click through to your message and then how many people convert to be a paying customer. So in addition to total reach, the way you winnow that down is how many actual leads did you get? Somebody filling out a form on your site, somebody calling your business, somebody handing you a business card, somebody ultimately maybe even coming to your booth at MJBizCon. How many leads did you get? By which source? Of those leads, like all that is, most of the time is an email, a business card, a phone call, and outreach. how many customers did you actually get off those leads by source, and again, by channel and brand. And then finally, you can do a ratio. So compare that exposure or reach to lead performance. So you get a ratio, and that starts to give you a really solid basis on which to compare your return on investment. Got a little frozen there. Okay, here's another, just as you're looking at ROI. MJBiz since 2020 has been selling its digital advertising on a CPM, which stands for cost per thousand impressions. So its cost, CPM stands for cost per, and then the M stands for mille. In other words, Latin and Italian for 1,000. So it's a cost per thousand impressions. Most mainstream media sells on this basis, as does all the social channels, as does Google. So if you buy advertising on any of those more mainstream platforms, it's all done on a cost per thousand basis. The reason that MJBiz has done this, and my impression is that not many other cannabis-focused publications do this or media businesses do this, is so that you have peace of mind. So if I charge you for 1,000 impressions, you are guaranteed to get 1,000 impressions. Whereas if you buy only on a timed basis, like I want to have my ad up for a week or a month, you don't really know how many people saw that ad. Therefore, it's hard to backstep into the ROI analysis that we just talked about. So looking for a CPM level deal gives you an easy way to compare costs effectively. Because an ad is an ad is an ad is not true, right? It all depends on how many people you're reaching. So even if you have to backstep into a calculation on a CPM basis, it's something I'd encourage you to do. And by backstepping, let me explain what I mean by that. Say you're buying an ad with a competitor of ours who doesn't sell on that basis. You can still ask them for the solid data on like how many visitors and impression, well, I guess how many page views in that instance they got that month that you bought an ad, say, and then do that analysis to backstep it. So, and again, the calculation would be your cost per impressions multiplied to get to a percentage basis. And I think in the chat, we should be able to share. I always cheat and use a free calculator. Being a content person, I don't actually do math. So there should be a cheat sheet coming in your chat as well. Okay, the final thing that I would say, I think, around ROI is about the importance of brand alignment when you're deciding where to spend your advertising dollars. So the quote on this slide is actually from that magazine ad survey that we just showed you a few minutes ago. This is from that report. You do get verbatim there as well. So this is just one respondent's comment, but it's typical of what we hear. This particular respondent so values the MJBiz brand name and the MJBiz magazine content that the ads that he sees or she sees in the magazine share in that halo. So MJBiz's brand identity really is the, very fact-based, very news-based, very like the legitimate. Sometimes we laugh that we're like the gray lady ant in cannabis, but that's because we mean to be legitimate. Like we talk about facts and not hyperbole is a big part of the MJBiz brand. And by advertising with us, you get that halo. So other brands have, by which I mean other media brands, have other kind of brand identities as well, all of which are legitimate, right? But you want to make sure that what you're trying to get across in terms of your messaging and brand is in lockstep with the brands that you're advertising on, rather than being in friction with them. Just another factor to consider as you're making those choices.
So this is actually perfect timing with Courtney Gwen's question that just popped in about content being king and best platforms to utilize for sharing that content, what tends to be more successful. Pam being a content magician herself, I'll have her chime in too, but This next slide actually kind of talks about content, or as I call it, thought leadership support, and the best avenues in order to do that. So Pam, if you want to move on to that thought leadership slide, then I can go ahead and kind of dive into that a little bit further. But Courtney, you're not incorrect by any means. There, obviously, brand recognition will always be that starting point because people need to know who and what it is that what you do, who you do it for, right? And creating that visualization kind of ties it all together for folks. But when it comes to content, that thought leadership is for sure what sets you apart as being able to create the essence of being the leader in that realm, if you will. So let's see, this slide didn't switch on over, Pam, sorry.
And sorry, I was obsessing about Courtney's question. I'll give you mine.
Yeah, because it's a great question. And this is something that is becoming more and more prevalent across advertisers because, as Pam mentioned, there's a lot of competition out there. It's just the reality of the world that we live in, and that thought leadership or that content is going to help add that additional layer of setting yourself apart. So here I threw in here an example campaign. I always like to think of like, how do we make this a 365 approach? Because it's all about, building up exposure, sending the mother a load or the bulk of what's important as far as how you want to set yourself apart from the competitor, but then also continuing that drip campaign to keep you in front of people. So people are always thinking, oh, I know that person. Oh my God, they did this. I need to talk to them. So that 365 approach is key. Some ways in which we do it at MJBiz is we have the ability to co-host webinars. So we kind of take the back work off of the folks who want to host the webinar. We do the registration, we set everything up, we manage Q&A, we market it, we get registration. So that's a really great opportunity. This is something where I personally am a fan of, if you have something great already, why not repurpose it? You've already invested in it. You can get more from reinvesting in by repurposing it, I should say. So I'm always a fan of that. Webinars are a great way to do that if you have something awesome already. The other thing is sponsored content. So Courtney, to your point where you ask about white papers, case studies, things like that, you can check and see if the publication you're aiming towards has the ability to post sponsored content. On MJBizDaily.com, right where our headlining stories are, we have the ability to post sponsored content. It will be noted as sponsored, but it looks like it is an opportunity for someone to open up a headlining story. And then we give folks the choice. So what Courtney points out, which is key in her question, is how do you make it lead generating? And that's the ticket right there. Is if you're going to put forth thought leadership, you want to make it lead generating ideally. People have different ideas of what that means to them and how they want to do it. So we offer the ability to have a gated form for people to complete to access your content. Now, in order for that to be successful, you want to have a good image that's going to appropriately reflect something that you're trying to share. And then you want to have a really great teaser, if you will. And then folks will fill out the form. We can either supply the form or we can link directly to your own landing page where you can collect the data that you want to collect to make that lead generating for people to open up the full documentation you're offering or what to log in and register for the webinar. Another clever approach to this is doing targeted dedicated email blasts. So some of our most successful advertisers that utilize email blasts come into it with the first thought of, okay, who's my target audience? That's who I want to go to, number one. And number two, they use the content to promote thought leadership. Again, using the content of the email blast to be a teaser to draw people in. Click here to learn more. Someone clicks there because they're like, oh, I need to know more. We've all been in those situations, guys, where we're listening to an infomercial or reading something and we're like, we need to know how to make this happen. So click to learn more. And again, it gets sent to a landing page that the advertiser sets up to collect the data, so that way they can get further information. And last but certainly not least, one thing that I don't believe is taken advantage of enough is full page advertorials. So I know I can only speak to MJBiz, and what we do here, we do offer that option to purchase a full page ad. And if you do purchase a full page ad, you can make it an advertorial to really kind of dive into a little bit more content there. Our digital version of our website can include the ability for folks to click on that ad, and we do have more subscribers on the digital front, and that way people can click and be directed to a landing page of your choice for lead generation. Okay, so Eva, I believe your last name is spelled Tomczyk. If I pronounced it incorrectly, my sincere apologies. How successful is emailing actually? And what are some tips on great email targeting? So that's a great question. Email is successful if you have something compelling, and whoever you're working with, if you have a good consultant, they'll be the ones to dive into what the specific target audiences their publication offers and how to best cater to them. The benefit of being able to observe data on the back end from the perspective of someone that sells advertising is we can actually tell our clients, hey, this works, this doesn't work with our audience. Here are some great examples. I can forward them to you. You can send me what you're working on, and we can give honest feedback on what that looks like. So in order to really have a successful, even in general, advertising campaign, the things you have to keep in mind, and when you're developing the relationship with who you're going to spend your dollars with, is, are they understanding my specific needs, what I'm trying to sell, number one, and number two, are they customizing the experience for me specifically? That's a huge piece. I think you all here can agree that you're not like the other next to you. So you're going to do business slightly differently. You have different things you need to advertise, and your marketing campaign and those that assist you in developing that have to understand that and support that as well.
I just add some more color.
Yeah,
to that,
please.
if you don't mind, Rachel.
Please.
So at MJBiz, with our own marketing, like say when we're marketing MJBizCon, email is our biggest driver. It gets the biggest response. Part of the reason why email gets the biggest response is that we've engaged our database, our audience, all year long. So it's not like the first time they hear from us, it's like, hey, wouldn't you love to buy an expensive ticket to MJBizCon? We've been wooing them through free content. As the previous asker, Courtney, said, you know, content is king. We've been wooing them with content. We've been making sure that we give them free newsletters throughout the year. We're touching them all the time, which is why that email works like a bang for conversion when we're ready to really pull the trigger. So to me, it needs to be situated within a larger campaign to be effective. In terms of targeting, yep, got to target. So obviously, like for example, with our database, nobody would be in our database if they hadn't expressed some interest in cannabis. So that's one, you know, slash and in terms of segmentation. But for most of our advertisers, just given the nature of cannabis, most are interested in specific geographic regions. So being able to slash by geography is important, and it's totally critical that each state market is at a totally different point in time. I was actually, just before this call, I was looking at our LinkedIn data, like right now, how many people are subscribing to us on LinkedIn. The second biggest state is New York State. There's only 2 dispensaries open in the whole state. Like nuts, but there's so much interest. So it's just like fascinating to me. So anyway, you might want to target your messaging and your reach based on which geographies you want to reach. We also can target by sector of the market. So if you sell a lighting system, you're probably not that interested in reaching somebody who's interested in who runs like a retail store. You want to reach the growers. So segmenting by sector is another thing that we do and that you should ask about as well. So those are my little feedback on email marketing. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, well, actually, I saw another question pop up that you could probably speak to more than me, as far as what are people's favorite email service providers or ESPs to use in the cannabis industry for business to business?
And I don't use that term. I suppose probably the question is about automated email marketing software, but feel free to clarify. So the one that I hear the most, because the price is relatively affordable, whereas the tracking is relatively sophisticated, is HubSpot. HubSpot also works well with integrating if you are interested in kind of a content marketing play as well. If you have content assets, it has strong skill sets in terms of helping you know what content is going to be interesting to your audience, and then tracking their journey all the way through from like content marketing to responding to a specific email. That's the one I hear about most often.
Yeah, and I would say the same when I'm talking to our advertising clients and we're talking about their like full annual approach and how they diversify it, because I'm interested to know like what else are they doing outside of MJBiz and how's that working. And a lot of people will throw out HubSpot for sure. It seems to be the most common. But do your research, of course, and compare and make sure it's relevant to what it is that you need for sure.
You know, while we're talking about content marketing, and because I just can't help it, I want to go back to Courtney's question about content being king. So here, her question was like, should we be doing webinars? Should we be doing case studies? Like, what's the best thing? So I just want to back up and tell you from my experience, the single biggest thing is no matter what platform, webinar, like pay-per-click, like the first thing to establish is what is the audience's need. So if you don't have that like audience get, like what are they actually worried about versus what do we have to sell? They're not gonna, it's hard to sell ice to Eskimos. It's easy to sell things to people who, if you're actually meeting like a concrete need that they have. That sounded like idiot proof, but it is shocking that even when we're writing content for people, sometimes we just miss the mark because we're too busy thinking about our own position rather than thinking about what the audience needs. The first thing is that audience get. Like, what are your salespeople being asked on their sales calls? When you're at a trade show, what are people coming up and asking you about? What is their pain? And address their pain. And then depending on what their pain is and what they actually want to hear, that's how you decide what platform to put it on. So if they really need like super in-depth technical speak, it's hard to convey and say a webinar. But boy, if you do a white paper with all these detailed technical details, like then you'd have some play. So the message that you're putting out decides the platform. I'm also interested in how the platforms can form a funnel. So we have a lot of luck putting out like short style reports that we give them away for free, but we ask for some information. Once somebody has taken, it's a low ask relatively. Like we try to put out compelling content. People usually are willing to give us an email address and a little bit of demographic, but then all they get is a free report. It's a low ask. After that, then I know they're interested enough in the topic that they might be willing to spend a half an hour on a webinar with me. But everybody who's on this call right now, who's like giving up their lunch hour or not doing whatever else you have to do, it's a big ask to sit here and listen. But I want to make that maybe my second step because it's a bigger ask. So I would think too about staging it. But number one, get the content right and then pick your platform based on what that content is my advice.
Yeah, 100% great advice. So the other example I wanted to throw out here too, because I am a huge fan of a 365 approach, is this example here. Again, I can't stress enough, like this is a super basic plan for the sake of this call, but ideally whoever you're speaking with and you're working with, and it doesn't matter who you're advertising with, but you really want them to create a customized experience for you and your specific needs. And again, the 365 approach, whether you're diversifying that or you're committed to spending it all in one place, that's your personal choice. Again, do your research. The thing with this is you want to stay in front of people at all times. That's going to be how you build your audience, how you build your client base, how you build your credibility. That is, the 365 approach is key. Some ways that I broke down how to do that is some right of sight ads. I threw video ad in there just to add some extra special sauce, if you will. I can't even remember how long ago it was, but when websites became super, super huge and started to evolve to be able to incorporate video content, it became almost like a key point of the way to drive people further into the whole of your website, if you will, is to start engaging them with video. That was an initial first step. So for just keeping that in mind, I threw video ads in here for fun. And the reach. So I know on our website, it takes a minimum of 50,000 impressions in order to have an impact because we have so many impressions on our website. So I would ask you, when you're doing your research and when you're in conversations with publications, ask them what's the minimum amount of impressions I would need in order for my ad to be seen, because what typically ends up happening is your ads rotating with others in that time period until impressions are reached. So you just always want to be very, very clear on, okay, we could say 50,000 impressions, we could say 1 million impressions. It may sound like a lot, but is it in reality? So just make sure to ask the right questions there. Any sort of run of site advertising, as Pam mentioned, is an opportunity for consistent brand exposure, which is huge when it comes to brand recognition. And if you have a compelling advertisement, it can also drive traffic to your website, which ultimately that's what we want, is traffic driven, if you will. Next, I threw in here targeted email ads. So I use the example of the newsletter because I had touched on email blasts previously. What I like about our newsletters is that what drives people to open it, it's not the advertiser. So with email blast, you want to have a compelling subject line and compelling content. With the newsletter, the content providers, in our situation, MJBiz, they're the ones that come up with the compelling subject line and the compelling content. That is our job to do that, to ensure that readers open. And then when they open it, boom, there's your ad that pops up before it gets into the detailed content below. So that's always a nice way to kind of tag onto something that's already happening to ensure that your information gets in front of your target audience. We have our overall newsletter, but then we also have segmented newsletters based on specific topics. So if you're a lighting company, for example, and you want to get in front of cultivators, then you would be in our cultivation newsletter, for example. You get that choice.
Yeah,
the next, go for it.
I just wanted to add a little bit of color on email, since you were talking about targeting email ads as well as some of the questions about email. One of the reasons that we offer advertising in our newsletters is because these are audiences that we have a lot of demographic information about. They're like in our database already. We see already how each of those subscribers is engaged. They're like a known and already engaged audience that you're just like getting in front of. My wider point is, one thing that I see a lot in cannabis, almost more than other industries I've worked in, is this is the number of junk companies who will offer to sell you an email list. In fact, literally 5 times a day, I get an email from someone offering to sell me the MJBizCon attendee list. That's not a real list. We don't sell to third parties to sell to you. So just getting a list is like the worst thing, because literally I have no idea where, like, they didn't get it from us. So I don't know how they could have gotten a list from MJBizCon, but the same is true of like other vendors who are just offering you generic like cannabis email lists. You don't know what you're getting with those people, and certainly not engaged. They're not an engaged audience. So just another piece of color around email.
Yeah, that's huge. Actually, that's an easy trap to fall into. So be mindful of that. I added in medium rectangle placement ads that would be in the general newsletter to everyone. So if you are interested in casting a wider net, and for some folks, their target audience really is a wider net, and that's awesome. It's just all about the awareness and what your ultimate goals are. So same exact concept, people opening up the email, the subject line's already compelling, the content's already compelling, boom, there's your ad with the ability for folks to click on it. And then advertising, again, I know it's a common thing people hear, print is dead, print is dead, print is dead, but tell my bookshelf that's all I got to say. Print's not dead. Yes, there's a lot more ability. There's more ease of tracking and less work of tracking when it comes to digital, if you're set up appropriately to be able to track it. That's the key. But regardless, print is not dead. So don't let that saying scare you, because it's just not true.
Okay, great. So this next section is just talking about some of the new media tools, but our formal comments are wrapping up, so do feel free to share your questions in the chat. Rachel, do you want to talk to what retargeting means and how we use it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually partner with another company called Feather on ad retargeting to help with this. So the best way that I can describe it is, let's say you saw a really cool bag, somewhere. You were at the store, you saw a really cool bag, you're like, I don't want to invest in it. Yeah, I just kind of want to do some research, but I love the way it looks. You get home, or maybe even on your phone, you start to look up, okay, let's compare prices, okay, at this store it's this, but can I find it on a discount website, whatever. And you pause, you decide, okay, I've done my research, I'm going to go do something else. And then all of a sudden you're on Facebook and there pops up in the corner the ad of the bag that you looked at earlier. So that's what ad retargeting is essentially. It's when you look up something, or when a reader looks something up, or they're reading about something, but then they leave that web page and they go to surf the internet elsewhere. And then those ads pop up of what they were previously looking at. We've all experienced it, right? That's what ad retargeting is. So the way that it works with MJBiz is, if you choose to do ad retargeting, your ads will not run on our websites. And I say websites because it's beyond MJBizDaily.com. It's also our MJBizConference.com website, and any other websites that we put together there. But anyone that visits those websites, well, they're not going to see your ad running on the website. Anywhere they go from there, as long as there's an opportunity for ad placement, just like in this image, if you're going to look up your recipe to cook dinner tonight, you'll see our advertisers pop up there. So it's a really cool opportunity to essentially follow our audience as they surf the internet, which, as we all know, people spend a lot of time surfing the internet. And then again, in our approach and the way we work with Feather, it's based on impressions. So you determine how many impressions or eyeballs you want to see your ad and dictate your package from there.
We are now also offering paid content. So Rachel talked a little earlier about our key sponsored content. Somebody was just asking a question about PR. And I would encourage everybody on the call to just go ahead and reply with your favorites if you'd like to. Anyway, one thing we're now offering is paid content, where you do have the opportunity to post your own press releases or other content. Why? Primarily for SEO. MJBiz Daily has great SEO leverage, and we want to let other people play in that. We also get asked all the time, can't you publish my article? We have a whole team of professional journalists, so this is how you get your article published on MJBiz Daily. The articles stay on the site in our database live for a year. You can always re-up and keep it evergreen for forever if that's what you want to do. But you get all our SEO power through paid content.
Yeah.
Yeah. We sort of have already talked about webinars, which we'll be conducting just like we're conducting this one via LinkedIn. So you also get access to our high level of LinkedIn audience.
Mm-hmm. And really quick, I just, Anon, to add to Pam's comment, everyone do share if you have a PR firm that you prefer to use, feel free to share. We also have a business directory on our website, MJBizDaily.com. We do have PR firms that are listed on that business directory, so feel free to utilize that. Also, it's free to add yourself to our business directory. So if that's something you want to do, go ahead and add yourself.
Great. What other questions do we have from y'all? And I'll go ahead and share our list of fine sales consultants. Yes, happy to share a copy of the media kit. Also, we'll make sure to send that out to this assembled group with a copy of the slides. This is our contact information for ease. To answer Courtney's question for the paid content, is the link labeled as paid in the HTML code? No. We, like in the layout of the post itself, there's an element on the post itself that's like identifies it as paid content. Again, just so we want to be clear to our audience what's what, but it's not in the actual HTML code. Okay, I'm pausing slightly awkwardly because we're having somebody translate from the LinkedIn chat to a Zoom chat so that we're seeing it. So I just want to give our supporters just a minute here in case there are other questions.
Yeah, and in the meantime, feel free to take a screenshot or write down our contact information. Don't feel like when this call ends, questions have to end. We're here to share the knowledge that we have and answer questions as needed.
Okay, great. Well, we can't say how much we appreciate you joining us and listening. And as Rachel says, we are here to answer your questions throughout. You can look in your email shortly for both our media kit, since it was requested, as well as a copy of these slides, and let us know how we can help. Good luck out there this year, you guys.
Yes, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Bye.